Hello, this is John of Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, and this is this week's Turning the Page. I'm joined this week by Chris, Summer of Love.
I was waiting for it.
And you can enjoy the Summer of Love at American Tattoo down in Brunswick, Maryland.
Sure you can.
And he's available every day except for Sunday and Wednesday.
Yep.
So if you want to talk to him Wednesday, you can talk to him about comics at Brainstorm Comics and Gaming because he normally hangs out for a couple hours to talk about the new books.
Yep.
Which is pretty much like your Saturdays now also.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And most other days of the week too, if we're going to be honest about it.
So I did have a question about your tattoo artistry. Do you have a favorite comic book one that you've done? Have you done a comic book one?
I've done some, yeah. I don't know if I have a favorite one, but
No?
I've done some, yeah.
Okay. So maybe we'll show some of your comic related ones on a future episode.
I have to find the pictures.
Okay. So let's start with topic number one, Chris. Over the last 2 weeks, several comic creators have signed deals with Substack. They are not exclusive, but they seem to be signing some of the bigger names in the industry. According to Rob Liefeld, they are getting huge advances of $600,000. I find that difficult to believe that they're giving them all $500,000 or more, but maybe. What do you feel is the impact of Substack on the industry?
I think we're kind of entering a new era, maybe. It feels a lot like it felt when Image started, but on like a different level.
So I would disagree with that just because Image was founded by 7 guys who were interested in comics, were already ingrained in comics, already had their. Whereas Substack is a platform that.
Right. I'm not saying it's the same thing because it's vastly different. It kind of feels like that though, where like you have honestly you have the top names in comic right now, all of them. I mean, minus 1 or 2, who are jumping to this platform.
We'll go over the list here in a second. But what do you think the impact is going to be on the?
I'm not sure. It's. I think it's going to be one of those wait and see kind of things. Some of them are saying there's going to be a lot of content on their Substack. Some are saying, I know Donnie Cates is saying that he's still going to have stuff published physically through Image eventually. I know Zdarsky and Tynion both talked about like Substack only type things. So I think it's going to be kind of one of those wait and see type deals.
So for the ones that decide to go exclusively Substack and not do a print version, I think they're making a very big mistake.
Me too. Yeah.
Number one, Tynion has built his career, and I know some people are going to disagree with this. I'm not saying he's a bad writer. I'm just saying what he built his career off of. And that speculators really investing in his work and helping drive up interest in them by that. If you do Substack exclusively, you don't have something for people to speculate on or invest in, and therefore you lose that kind of interest.
Tynion's announcement kind of confused me a little bit because he talked a lot about like wanting to work on like his own like creator driven stuff, but he already has a very successful independent book out.
More than just one, yeah.
Yeah, more than just one. And I find it hard to believe that he would hit any company, especially the one that he's with now, and say, I want to write this book, and they're going to be like, no, we don't want you to do that. Like, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I feel like Substack is kind of...
Well, let's go over Substack. So Substack is a newsletter, which also confuses me how you're going to produce like comic book content in a readable fashion.
Right. It seems to me like it's a lot of behind-the-scenes, quote-unquote, stuff is what everyone keeps talking about.
Scott Snyder's going to do a how to write comics. So hopefully he takes the course himself.
He takes his own course, yeah. I think Substack is kind of trying to create like a Twitch-like environment, for lack of, I guess, a better term, where you can subscribe to individual folks' pages, Substacks, whatever, and get more behind the scenes kind of stuff. I think that's cool. It's a little weird to me that it's like a creator by creator basis. So if with the large amount of names that are jumping on it right now, like it's a lot of money that someone's going to have to put out to kind of subscribe to each one of these.
Yeah, there was probably like 10 or 12, so it's already like $6
million.
And
at like $6.99 or $7.99 a subscription, like that's going to stack up pretty quick. So I feel like it's going to force people to kind of make choices that really shouldn't need to be or like don't have to be made.
Or do people sacrifice their buying of comics in order to?
And that's the other thing is like, are they not going to buy as many physical books to have this, subscription to this newsletter? And most people are touting like a more personal experience or whatever, where they can kind of communicate with fans and stuff, which. Aside from like the big money advances they're getting, I kind of don't understand why they couldn't do that on their own. Mm-hmm. Like, why would you not just make your own blog or whatnot? So I think it's going to be kind of like a wait and see thing. I know there's a lot of excitement about it, and a lot of people are like really stoked on this, and I'm cautionary, I guess.
So let's go a little bit deeper into Substack, because there was one thing that you said you wanted to talk about in terms of some controversy regarding Substack.
There was a bit of controversy, yeah. And it didn't have anything to do with comic creators or comic books at all. It was other people who are on Substack who have
political commentary.
Very political commentary, and support a lot of anti-trans stuff, which I don't agree with at all, and a lot of people had issues with. Whether that affects the comic side of this and those folks, I don't know. But it's kind of hard for me to excuse people who have certain opinions and have said things and are allies and support certain things, but then go to a platform where the opposite is happening.
I got you.
So
Substack's defense of that was that they're a free speech platform, and they don't want to censor anybody. Now, I will say that I'm very libertarian, and I think that there should be means for people to discuss things regardless of their opinions. I think if you drive things underground, things become more fetishized and get an allure that you don't want them to have. However, I do have a however to this one, and that's if they were giving these people advances, then they are supporting them outside of like people buying their Substack subscriptions or whatever.
And I agree with you. I think everybody has the right to say free speech is something that's a big deal.
As I told you before, as long as it doesn't incite violence, as long as it doesn't ask people to harm somebody else, as long as it doesn't.
But and I can say you can have an opinion, and free speech is great, and
yeah, and I'm okay with people not wanting to subscribe to it because people are on there also.
Yeah. But I do think that anti-trans hate and that stuff, and supporting these political movements in I think Britain was the specific. That's hate speech, and that's discrimination, and it's not being cool to somebody who doesn't that you should be it doesn't matter what your view are or how you live your life, as long as you're not hurting anybody, you should have that right. And for anybody to say that you can't is silly. So if you're on a platform that supports that also, even if it's not directly involved with you, you're still in some way supporting that, in my opinion.
I got you.
And people can disagree with that. And this is very far removed from the comic thing in general. These people are like political reporters or something like that. But it's still, that's the platform they're using to say these things. You're involved in that platform, so you're still hand in hand with that, and that's a big issue that I have. I'm personally not going to support Substack. That's just me.
I got you.
But I don't think that it's something that's going to completely revolutionize and change the comic industry. I think it's something new and exciting for a lot of people. I just think it's kind of a weird way to go about it, and I think the bottom line is Substack just gave a lot of people a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of venture capital money involved in
enough that Tynion basically, he's in his own words said that DC offered him the biggest contract he's ever had with them, and Substack was substantially more, enough for him to walk away from DC. Yeah. And they handed him Batman. They were like, we want you to do what Hickman did with X-Men.
So I'm not going to lie. I think these creators made a bad choice, and I'll get to that after we go through each of the creators as to why I think
Sure.
Well, I have a very specific reason why, but we'll come back to that. So as we talked about, James Tynion was one of them. So he is leaving Joker with issue 13. Mm-hmm. He is leaving Batman after November? After Fear State?
After Fear State, I think is what they said. Yeah.
And then Nice House on the Lake is going to continue, but it is taking a 5-month hiatus after issue 4 or 5.
Yes. or six, five or
it
six, I
six?
think. Yeah,
Okay.
they said halfway through its
Okay.
12-issue run. So.
That's a big hiatus for
Huge hiatus, yeah. For a book that's as hot as and as good as that book is, it's a pretty long hiatus. Yeah.
So obviously he's a huge name within the industry. So right now everything he touches seems to turn to gold. He seems to have a little bit more staying power than Scott Snyder and Donny Cates when they were and not that Donny Cates is not like still one of the top drawing names in comics.
Sure.
It just seems that he doesn't draw as much attention as he did like a year ago.
I think Tynion was the one that I had the most kind of like, whoa moment, because what he was saying, like I said, was, this great opportunity to do what he wanted to do and make these creator-owned books. And it's like, well, you're kind of doing that now. You have a bit of carte blanche with DC and Batman to do what you want. It's very successful. Something is Killing the Children is doing great. That's just spin off into Enter the House of Slaughter. So it's like, you're already doing that. So why do you need to do this new thing, to do the same thing you're doing now,
Unless they're paying him more.
Right, other than Substack just gave him a giant stack of loot to do it, which I can't really be mad at him for. I'm not mad at him for it. I understand it, but...
So like I said, I think it was a mistake on his part to leave DC, but
I do too.
I think he should have stayed on at least one title, preferably Joker. But
and maybe that was the thing. Maybe it was kind of like an all or nothing deal. Like they wanted him to do the whole shebang, and he really wanted to focus more on his creator stuff, which is understandable.
So the next one up is a rising star. I would say a lot of people are saying superstar or superstar writer. I think he's getting there. I think he's on the cusp of it, and that's Chip Zdarsky. I don't think he's quite reached superstar status yet, but I think he's...
call him a superstar.
You do?
Really? Yeah.
I think he's knocking on the door. I think he's just outside of the...
Maybe superstar is not a star, Yeah, sure. I mean, he's right. He's on great books right now. He's writing good stuff. Yeah.
They're canceling Daredevil, but he is staying on the title from what they said. So I guess it's going to relaunch maybe with Elektra permanently as Daredevil. Who knows? We'll see.
I mean, that run is amazing. It's one of my favorite books right now. Elektra as Daredevil is great. Like the whole.
He said he's still going to do Marvel and DC stuff.
That's cool too.
I think he's the smartest of all the creators.
Yeah, I think he's definitely keeping like the lowest profile about all of it, which I like, and I think that he's being smart about it, where he's like using this opportunity to do what he wants to do, but also staying with his like bread and butter, I guess, for lack of a better term.
Yes.
So that I like the way that he's doing it far more than a lot of the other people that are doing it.
Yeah, I think he's keeping his foot in the door with both of them and keeping his contacts and stuff there.
And I think the one kind of basic underlying through all of it was that these guys want to write books and write stories that aren't controlled by the big companies, and I understand that. As a creative person, it sucks when someone tries to put you in a box, especially when you're getting paid for it. So I get wanting to do creator-owned stuff, but I think he's really doing it the best of all the names now.
Donny Cates. He seems to be keeping his foot in the Marvel door as well.
Yeah, I think it would be silly of him not to. I think Marvel's put a lot behind Donny Cates, and he's been very successful with Marvel. I think he's been more successful with Marvel than he has with his own stuff.
So that's the funny thing. Like, people were... Again, this is why I say Chip Zdarsky is not quite a superstar yet. Donny Cates, a lot of people critically acclaimed his stuff when he was doing his independent books. It wasn't until he took on some Marvel work that he really started skyrocketing to superstardom. Mm-hmm. And I think he is obviously there at this point. And I think he would make a huge mistake if he didn't continue doing his Marvel work at the same time.
I think so too. God Country was an amazing title. A lot of his other independent stuff fell very short for me.
Yeah.
Like Redneck was not very good.
Baby Teeth
had so much potential and was not. It's still an ongoing, but it's not very good. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of Donny Cates is hype, unfortunately. I'm not a huge Venom fan, so I really wasn't like on that. I know a lot of people like that book a whole lot. There's a lot of noise with Donny Cates that I think is just Donny Cates being Donny Cates. You know what I mean?
He's a hype machine.
Yeah. That video he posted of him with all the gold chains and stuff as a celebration was a little tongue in cheek and crazy.
So I'm not gonna lie. I think he manipulated a lot of the speculator websites into supporting him and hyping his stuff. Very, very.
He's a smart guy in that aspect of it, and he definitely knows how to sell himself. A Tomahawk was a great one too to mention, So I think there's.
I don't want to make it clear. I'm not saying he's a bad writer. I'm just saying
he writes questionable things sometimes. Not questionable in like that way, but just I think that a lot of the hype around Donny Cates is Donny Cates hyping himself up and people kind of buying into that hype, which.
Yeah, he and Ryan Stegman are going to do Vanish for Substack. So,
and I think. So he definitely said that Image is going to make physical copies of what he's doing on Substack, and I did see that one of the perks or whatever, I don't know what they're calling it on Substack, was it was like a 7 or 8 page preview of that first Vanish book was going to be one of the big things that was coming out soon for his subscribers. So.
And then Scotty Young also is one of the ones. He's relaunching I Hate Fairyland over
which is a big book for him, like a real big book for him. Yeah.
It did fairly well for an independent book.
Especially for someone who's kind of just known for doing covers.
Baby covers.
Baby covers. I mean, he definitely, that dude has found his niche, man, and he is riding that thing to the end.
Marvel calls him whenever there's a #1 issue out. Like, hey, we have another baby cover.
We need you to babify something, Kang. I mean, there's all kinds of weirdness, yeah.
I wonder how he's done at this point. 150, 200?
It's got to be a lot.
There's
The Me You Love in the Dark was a great first issue, though. So,
yeah.
Super,
I think he's a very good writer. His artwork sometimes I like, sometimes I don't. It's hit or miss for me sometimes.
If he was drawing that book, I don't think I would have been as stoked on it as I was.
Jorge Corona's art on that is beautiful.
Amazing. That book is perfect.
I think his best baby cover is the Bullseye one. If you haven't seen it, I'll have to show it to you. It's got a lot of negative space to it. It's kind of like those Christopher, what's his name? Christopher Tyler? Or Tyler Christopher? John Tyler. Whatever his name is. It's got a lot of negative space. I think it's his best one. That was from like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, maybe even longer.
Right.
But who else is going to? Hickman. The X-Men fans, his 7-year plan apparently is been cut short.
7-year plan.
So apparently he gave an interview where he said when Diamond shut down last year, he started exploring other avenues in order to get like material out to readers, and I guess at that point he started talking to Substack. It seemed like so.
Yeah, it just really, and I don't know like the inner workings of all that stuff. I'm sure there's people that know way more about that. But it seems to me that if like any one of these guys came to your company as an independent company and said, "I want to make this book," you'd be crazy to turn them away. So it's weird to me that like they keep saying all of these people are saying the same thing basically. It's like, oh, I want to explore these independent books and do my own thing, and it's like, but you can do that now. Like, why don't we just really say what's going on here? It's like Substack just gave you a giant stack of money, which fair enough. Like I wouldn't hate any of them for that. Like you got to get paid, but it's like let's not hide behind this like I get to do what I want thing. Like let's be real about it and say I got paid to do what I want.
Well, I know right now Ed Brubaker is very brutally honest that he only gets like $5,000 whenever like they use his storylines, and he's kind of bitter about that.
It's Ed Brubaker. Like
Ed Brubaker's a great writer.
He's a great writer, but like
Substack got him. I might. Ed Brubaker is one of the.
I don't know if like Brubaker would be the one that would like make me go for it.
No.
Yeah. No. I mean,
I think he's the most solid comic book writer in the industry, and has been for like the last almost 20 years at this point. So.
I mean, he does write solid. I will agree with you there. He does write a good story, and he's written a lot of them. I don't dislike him. I don't dislike his books at all.
And when he closed the door on Marvel and DC, he closed the door.
He did. Yeah. A lot of this feels like hype. It feels like flash in the pan. It feels like we went after like the top names that are great, that are like big right now and making money, and we just gave them an F ton of money to do.
Well, let's go over the last 3 names really quickly. One we've already mentioned. Last 2 names. one we already mentioned, Scott Snyder, and then the weakest one that I think is probably on the list is Saladin Ahmed. I feel like he really hasn't developed a name for himself yet to really
Right.
to be hyped as like a.
He's just jumping on the train. I mean, I can't fault him for it. You know what I mean?
And so I don't know. I feel like I told you before that I think they're all making a mistake, but we'll get to that in a couple more seconds. So you said you don't want to jump in on Substack at all because of the.
At this point, no, I really don't. I mean, in a world where we all subscribe to so many subscription services from various streaming services, Twitch, whatever else.
So
it feels like.
Do you think they made a mistake by doing all these announcements within like a 10-day period? I think that they should spread it out because the stuff isn't even coming out yet.
No, it's not. I think a better marketing person would have spread that out a bit.
Maybe one a week. Like, hey, join us next week for the.
Yeah, let's see who else is going to come. And I think, and it seems more of that Substack really had nothing to do with any of that. And it's just like the creators signed the contracts and did the thing. And they were just like, hey, guys, we're doing this. Maybe it would have a little direction from them. Like, hey, maybe hang on to this for a week and like not.
Yeah, imagine if every Friday for like 8 Fridays in a row, and everybody's like, "Who's the next one going to be?" Like, start like this.
I mean, you got to say, I think it. If you're DC or Marvel right now, you're reeling a little bit. You know what I mean? You're losing a lot of talent.
If DC loses Stephanie Phillips, I think that's a huge loss for them.
Big. Especially and losing Zdarsky right now, or not Zdarsky, Tynion. On Batman and the Bat Family books.
After like a month ago, he was talking about how he had a year plan for.
Well, he talked about he had like Hickman style plans of like reshaping the whole universe, and it sounded really cool.
And
now it's gone. So it's like where do all those books go now? I mean, you have Fear State and all of that coming up.
I hope that he was working with Joshua Williamson, and Joshua Williamson has at least those core ideas in a notebook somewhere. And
you would hope so. And from the few things I've read from him, it doesn't sound to me like he is like just like walked in and did the like F you, I quit, I'm out of here. Like he's kind of trying to leave the groundwork that he laid there to move on. It also opens a door for younger, more unknown artists and writers to kind of come up and maybe make a name for themselves.
Which is what DC has been concentrating on all this year.
Yeah, for sure.
So 2 more questions. One, does Marvel regret giving Nick Spencer a job, since Nick Spencer apparently was the one that recruited all of these people to...
I mean, I'm sure somebody somewhere on some floor in that building regrets it, but as a whole...
Well, the answer is they should regret it just because of the Captain America story.
I mean, they should. They should, honestly.
That's the answer, sir.
But as a whole, as big as that company is right now, and as big as both of them are, honestly, like, I mean, as sucky as it's going to be for all of them to lose these, like, superstar artists and writers, I don't think it's really going to affect them that much.
So the next question. Was it a mistake for them to sign with Substack?
I mean, it's way too early to tell. Way too early to tell. If those dudes got a bag and got paid, then no, it's not a mistake. Whether there's still this much hype and this much stuff going on next year at this time with Substack, who knows? But
so I'm going to say that it is a mistake, and the reason for that is, and the reason why I said Chip Zdarsky actually made the best decision out of all of them. When writers go to start their own thing, it seems that they have a much harder time than artists returning to the big two after it. So in the 90s, I think you collected comics then. A lot of big name writers went and started Legend underneath Dark Horse. Now Mike Mignola did continue doing Hellboy. He's had a very successful career with it, but like John Byrne's career definitely stalled after.
I think Mignola is kind of a
aberration,
a tough one, yeah, because that dude stayed in his lane completely, and he's always stayed in his lane.
This is what I want to do. I sell however many copies, and I'm happy with how many copies I sell.
I love him. I love his art. We've had this discussion way too many times where I bought a book just because it's got his cover on it, and you're like, oh, that's terrible, but.
But all of them seem to have a much harder time getting any sort of traction after that kind of.
I think it's hard to go from making your own thing and doing your own thing back to under being the direction of your editor, and this is you have to do certain things because these are other people's properties and yada.
So another example was Guerrilla Comics underneath Image when Image trumpeted the fact that they were doing a writer revolution instead of an artist revolution. Mark Waid was involved with that. He had a white hot career up until that point, and then all of a sudden it seemed like his and he still writes. I'm not saying that he doesn't have a career,
right?
But it seems like he's not as popular or as a hot commodity as he was beforehand. And I'm going to say that the reason for that is and a lot of people. And I'm not saying that you're not necessarily making more money doing your own thing. You might make more money doing your own thing, despite what I'm about to say. The number of books you move on your own things is a lot less than Batman, a lot less than Daredevil, and because those are recognizable commodities. They're not just buying your name; they're buying the name of the character as well. And the thing is, when you leave Marvel or DC, like you just said, the young and hungry people, there's 100 people behind you who want that job just as much as you did when you first started. And I'm not begrudging them making money. Like by all means, make as much money as you can.
Get that bag, baby.
I mean, it's not your character. Maybe you don't feel as fulfilled writing a character owned by somebody else.
I think it was Tynion. Don't quote me, but I know he was talking about like the pitfalls and the anxiety of like publishing your own work and talking about like issue 3 just came out and you're still trying to fund issue 4 while drawing issue 6 or writing issue 7, and how the creator comics it's a grind and stuff like that, and how nice it would be to actually have the money to not have to worry about that. So I think there is a lot of comfort and security with going with one of those big companies where you know that no matter what, like people aren't going to stop reading Batman books. They're not going to stop reading Spider-Man. It doesn't matter who's writing them for the most part, unless it's terrible. They're still going to read them. They're still going to support that character. So.
Dan Slott proved that for almost 20 years.
True. Very true. Yeah. Very true.
But no, the point being though, like I know that James Tynion is a huge name, but maybe DC finds another writer by that point.
That is just as good, maybe.
And much cheaper.
Sure.
And I think that's the biggest pitfall that you face is there's always more people interested in writing Batman. There's always more people interested in writing Spider-Man or whatever title you're talking about.
I think that if you look at it from not a business standpoint and look at it from a creator standpoint, as someone who makes their living creating, basically, that the opportunity to do something with complete creative freedom that you want to do is worth the risk, and it's worth the chance that maybe this isn't going to work out just so you can do it.
But that's why
I understand that.
That's why I say I think Chip Zdarsky is making the best choice out of.
I think he's the safest. Him and Donny Cates are for sure the safest in all of this. Like if this totally flops and everyone hates it, those guys can go back to doing what they were doing, and nobody's really going to bat an eye at it.
And even if it is successful, Nick Spencer gets credited with being even hurting the industry even further than what his terrible Captain America comic did.
Right. So bad.
Gosh. So I think that we will probably make this whole episode just Substack and probably end it there, because this was probably already like half an hour. Let me ask the cameraman.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's a big thing. I think it's a big wait and see thing at ultimately at the end of the day. Whether this is successful and whether this leads to more people doing it, or whether this totally fails and everyone's going to hate it, I definitely think it's going to be a time will tell situation.
I think it will be very difficult to read comic books in a newsletter format. Like I don't understand what's.
And I think a lot of it is like people think that like these guys are just going to be pumping out books on a regular basis. It sounds to me like the majority of this is going to be like, it's Wednesday and I had coffee and played with my dog today and wrote here's a page that you know what I mean? Like. Yeah. Like a blog. It seems like it seems like a lot of this is going to be like a blog type thing.
And $7 a newsletter.
Yeah, like $7.99 or $6.99 or something like that. I think I saw. That's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot when you add up all your other Netflixes and whatever else you're subscribing to on a regular basis now. I think that's gonna deter a lot of people. especially if it's going to come into whether you're buying books in the physical form. If you can't afford to get what you want to read,
I think what they're really hoping for the writers and the artists is that they get like 10,000 subscribers or what have you, and then and let's say they get $2 out of that 7.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming probably a little bit more than that, but let's assume 2. So you get $20,000 a month from your
over and over again. All the articles that I've read on this, and we've both spent a lot of time reading about this recently, is I think the model that Substack went with was just throwing tons of money at these guys and hoping they're going to get it back in subscriptions, because if they're giving each one of these guys as big a bag as we think they are, it's a lot of money that just got put out.
So that's what I'm saying, though. If they can get like 10,000 subscribers, I mean, they should make more than enough money to...
You would hope.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, you would think. I don't know.
They're gonna
hope,
hope,
but then again, you also have the artists to pay also, and the letter. Like, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's printing, and there's all kinds. There's editors and letterers and colors. There's all kinds of inner workings and stuff. So I think this is a much bigger situation.
Also, some people get lazy when they work on their own, as opposed to having somebody yelling at them. So
some people do. Yeah.
And is there a guarantee that you're going to get enough content from that month to justify your $7? Like,
yeah, I mean, if literally like I'm hearing about like your Starbucks order and your breakfast in my newsletter that I'm paying $8 a month.
What if he doesn't put out any though? What if
it's nothing? Like I don't think there's any like there's no restriction.
What if he's like, I don't have anything for you this month, sorry?
I don't. Like, yeah, here's like a weird outline. I know that Tynion talked about like writing a novel or something like that. Like it's just so vast and out there at this point.
I will say it's very interesting that the market is changing right now, that they are trying all these different ways to get out there. And I have no problem with that. I hope that every one of these creators does a print version as well. Mm-hmm. And not so much for me as it is for the industry.
Sure.
The readers like having something in their hand. Mm-hmm. Like an iPad or
there is no. I don't think there is a comic industry without the physical form of comics in some way. And even as many avenues as you have to read comics digitally now, it's still far less people doing that than they are reading physical books. So
now, if it gets more people into it, I'm all for that, because obviously, like, growing the market is good, and I think sooner or later those people will find print versions and.
But also, what makes comic books is the collectability value of them. And if there's nothing to collect, and
we all have OCD, so
yeah, we do. Most of us have OCD. Yeah, you're right. But if there's nothing that you can hold in your hands and collect and have value, then what's the point at the end of the day? I feel like so.
So we'll turn the page on this topic. I'm sure we will have a lot more to explore.
And 2 pages. We talked for that. We talked about Substack forever.
Yes. Don't forget to LCS, like, comment, and subscribe. Your local comic book shop, Brainstorm Comics and Gaming, the YouTube channel. We are at 208 subscribers on there. We're hitting more and more. I know I told you yesterday that we're actually getting a lot more views right now also. So we have a cool unboxing video if you guys like unboxing. So. Also, don't forget to visit our stores. We have one in downtown Frederick. Great place to visit, great day trip. You can visit the restaurants downtown, the breweries, the bars, the restaurants. I may have said restaurants twice, I don't remember.
There's a lot of them.
There are a lot of restaurants. Yeah. Lots of great stuff to do down there, though. And if you're looking for back issues, definitely visit the Walkersville location. We have 100,000 comics up on top, probably 200,000 altogether in the store. But definitely want to set aside a couple hours if you want to go digging through for some books. And that's it for today. Any closing thoughts, Chris? Or
I've said a lot of thoughts today. I don't really think I have any.
All right. So we'll end this episode by saying thank you for watching and have a good day.